who was a guy that, whether you met him or not, in the business that you have just hated?
Disco Inferno.
that took no time.
God damn, I fucking hate Disco Inferno.
You wasted no time. Okay, so I always tell people, or I started telling people, I gotta remind myself to stop saying the time of day when I make these videos, because that was a really bad thing a really bad habit, because somebody could be watching it in the evening, and I probably started it in the morning. That being said, hello, my hatters. Happy New Year's. I know we're like halfway through the month and everything, but I definitely appreciate being invited here today with my two best friends, Phil and I forgot how I wanted Joaquin. Okay, yeah, there we go. So, yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Shit, I did it, didn't I?
Who cares? Who cares? Oh, we record this in the morning, so we have time to get lunch afterwards. Big whoop.
I could definitely go for a lunch right now, because the way things went for me this morning, ugh.
Well, I mean, you're the Mad Hatter too. You don't have to get time right. You know, that's the whole point of that character in the Lewis Carroll books. Yeah.
Well,
birthdays and all that.
Yeah, and not to mention the tea. I think that was where I had it worse, because I had a tea problem. I had a really bad tea problem. Don't tell anybody. I hope the secret is safe with you guys and the internet. So, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I actually didn't want to do this collaboration because of some kind of or anything like that. I honestly just wanted to spend time with my best friends. That's the main reason I showed up here today.
We've been fooled.
We've been fooled. Look, so I actually did want to start by saying, first off, Phil is a genius, right? He's a genius. He's been doing this a lot longer than the rest of us had. We've actually talked about this last year, about when he started doing the tapes for Backyard Wrestling, which, by the way, go to Redbubble and get those, because those things are nice.
Backyard Wrestling History.
Backyard Wrestling History, because I love the channel. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I even watched some of that stuff he did 10 years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I enjoy it. So I had a question. I had a question for you guys.
Go ahead. Shoot.
The first thing that I wanted to talk about is, and we've talked about it individually, I've seen you guys talk about it with each other, is the last match. And that's what I'm dubbing it as, the last match, where you guys had the last match, and I believe your video was calling it "When You Lose Your Cool."
Yeah.
And I've talked to you guys individually about it, and Joaquin actually watched that interview, and we had a conversation about it, and it was like, I was happy that you guys saw that understanding or whatnot. What was the first thing that happened at the end of that match after the cameras went off?
So I was very young. I was very immature at the time. I was very hot because I set all these unrealistic expectations for myself, and then when it didn't meet those expectations, I got real mad. So I remember just it taking me some time to cool down. Do you remember what happened after the match?
I remember feeling shameful and guilty, and then I also felt really sad because Phil was the first person I ever met when I moved into California, outside of my cousins, that I could really consider a friend.
Right.
And from there, we built this whole thing with all these people, and it's like, yeah, I had the debate team and chess club and stuff, but it was like that foundational group of friends and an activity that I look forward to doing. 2 weekends and a break. And I wasn't sure when I was going to be able to hang out with any of these people ever again after that. I didn't know what the future was going to be. So I was very sad about that, right. Because it was hitting me like, this is the end. And it was less about the quality of the match and more about like saying goodbye to an era, potentially saying goodbye to people that I thought were really good friends. And I was crying.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like tears were hitting my face because this had meant so much to me. This was like, this is everything.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
definitely remember it was very much an end of an era because we had wrestled in my backyard for years and years at that point, and the time was coming where it was finally like, all right, enough's enough, and we were gonna figure out what the next chapter was gonna be. So for a lot of us, we didn't know, are we gonna keep wrestling after this? Is this it? Did I just have my last match? Is this just the end of this chapter and another one's coming? So I remember emotions being very high that day.
Okay, so I was supposed to ask both of y'all this when I talked to y'all a year or so ago. Why did you guys stop wrestling in the backyard?
It was mainly because my mom was starting to have an issue with it because we had one wrestler who had almost a neck injury. It was a stinger. It was scary. And my mom was kind of like, well, if something happens, it's my property. I'm liable. I'm not going to lose my house because you kids want to play fight on the weekends. And so it just kind of got to a point where my mom was just like, look, enough's enough. Like it was one thing when you guys were younger, but now that you're older and you're taking more risks and you're pushing things a little farther, like I don't want to lose my house.
Okay.
And so that was basically it, which is when we started wrestling at a park, because then we were like, oh, well, now the city's liable.
Yeah.
Check and mate.
I remember the phrase you told me, and I always tell this to people to this day, is that your mom had said, we've been dodging the bullet called lawsuit long enough.
So, I don't remember if it was 2002 or 2003. Phil, you had a catastrophic neck injury.
That was 2004.
2004, my
Yeah, when I broke my neck.
Yeah, so when I seen that video, and it was actually from a compilation video that you had on VHS, I had to know, Martin, where were you during this time?
I was like, if I recall correctly, during that time, like I was in CCW very early during the experimental phase, and then like after that summer, dropped out for a minute. So during that time, I was doing my high school thing.
Right.
I was getting, I was trying to win trophies in debate and trying to win chess matches and being the treasurer of the anime club and all that kind of stuff. So my social life had filled. At that point, me and Phil were hanging out. I want to say like maybe three or 4 months into junior year, we started kicking it. I never forget this, actually. When that happened, I can't remember how I heard, but I want to say like Chris might have called and told me what happened, Nappy. And I called Phil and I was like, hey man, are you all right? I heard you broke your neck. And he was like, yeah, I'm okay. It's just, Phil, he's a tough son of a gun. But I just want to make sure he was good. And I was like, all right, man, we'll see you later. And then he was like, oh, wait, are you coming to the WrestleMania party? He was like, dude, you're laying out with a broken neck. And then Phil later told me I was the only one of his friends that called to see if he was okay and assumed we weren't going to have the party. And everyone else was like, we're still having the WrestleMania party, right?
To be fair, Phil, I never had anybody's number. And my dad had a strict no call out policy.
Yeah. So my whole thing is, I had remembered, I don't remember where I saw, but there was a thing I saw where somebody mentioned that Vince McMahon will never ask one of his wrestlers to do something he wouldn't do.
Right.
And there's footage of Vince McMahon doing the zip line at WrestleMania 12 before Shawn Michaels does it. Right. And so I, as a kid with my own backyard wrestling federation, I took that to heart. So I was always like, I have to be the example. I have to set the standard. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to expect the same from you, and I won't ask you to do something I won't do. Right. So I would jump off my roof. I'd put myself in hardcore matches. I'd lose more than I'd win. Like, I wanted to make myself an example. And so with the whole neck thing, like, yeah, I broke my neck, but I could still walk. Like, It wasn't that bad. It was like, I think it was an acute cervical fracture. I cracked 2 of the discs in my back. I forget which ones, but I cracked 2 of them, right? But I can still walk, so I'm like, I'll be fine. This will heal. What's the worst that could happen?
Okay, so what were you doing during that time you spent off? Were you more focused on camera work? Were you still doing promos?
I was still going to the shows every week. I was champion when that happened.
Yep.
So then we had to figure out, like, okay, well, we're obviously going to take the belt off of you. So then I had to do this whole angle with Kid Crush where he took the belt off of me. We were right in the middle of this storyline where we went to war with another federation, RCW. And so I was like cameraman doing commentary for all the matches. I was still trying to be involved as much as possible, and I didn't take that long off. I was only off for about I think 2 months, maybe 3 before I came back from injury. I did a whole video about why I came back from the neck injury when I did.
Yeah. So, did it require surgery?
No, it was just like, it's cracked. It's broken. It's cracked. It'll heal. You can't put a cast on your neck. So I had a hard collar that I wore for, I think, a month. And then after that, I had a soft collar and I wore that for another month. And then I was like, I'm sure I'm fine. And I just never went back to the doctor because I was like, I feel okay. I'm fine.
Okay. So, Joaquin, in all the time that you've done backyard wrestling, I've actually never seen you, in a sense, banged up. Were you actually ever injured doing backyard wrestling?
Not seriously. The worst I ever got was actually our last PWO match we had together. I got got a knot. It was an ugly knot too. It was like, dude. I mean, we just chalk it up to it just the most hardcore moment we could is wrapping the cookie sheet.
So I remember actually seeing. I was there when you showed up to school with the knot.
Oh, that's right. You hadn't left Kennedy yet.
I hadn't left Kennedy yet. Yeah. So, Phil, you left.
Wait, that was a summertime match, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
no, I saw the knot in the video that you showed, because you used to show me videos.
Yeah.
Okay. So Phil, you left Kennedy right after freshman year.
Right? Yeah, I went to Kennedy for 1 year and it was like, nope. And transferred to De Anza, finished out my term at De Anza.
I always wondered how you were able to do that. Did you use another address, or because usually the way the district works is they send you to the school based on your address.
I think they do that initially, but then you can request a transfer. So I think after the first school shooting, my mom was like, "Would you rather go somewhere else?" And I was like, "That'd be nice."
We had a school shooting that year?
We had a school shooting?
We had a bomb threat, but we didn't have a school shooting.
It wasn't at the school. It was in the neighborhood around the school.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I forget what they call that neighborhood behind
the Manor.
Kennedy. Yeah, the Manor.
Yeah.
There was a shooting over there. And so that's when I was like, you know what? Maybe going to school in the hood isn't the best idea.
And to this day, we still have the occasional lockdown because something's gone on in the neighborhood. But I can proudly say that no one in my time going to school there or working there has ever, as a kid, ever been shot. Knock on.
Yeah, we got actual wood here.
See, I remember Kennedy messed me up because when I went to De Anza, I was like Dorothy when she goes to Oz. I was like, oh my God, there's panes in the windows. Oh my God, the water comes out of the fountain. This is amazing.
Water came out. It just didn't come out.
It didn't come out clean. Look, so after you had left Kennedy, and me and Joaquin, we still went together. We went to school together for another 2 years before I ended up going to De Anza. How did you guys manage to stay in contact and be able to coordinate these matches that you guys did?
So the way we would do it is when we were in my backyard, we would do 2 Saturdays and then a break. So we'd wrestle 2 Saturdays in a row and then we'd take a week off. And then basically just, there's no social media back then.
Of course,
there's no cell phone. So it's just calling everybody every week and be like, hey, there's a show this week. Are you coming? And then once we know who's coming, we start to kind of figure out what stories do we want to advance? What matches do we want to do? This is old-fashioned, pick up the phone, call people, see who shows up, figure it out when they get there.
Okay, so a video that I don't think I've seen out of either of you guys yet was your favorite matches.
Okay.
Now I haven't seen much of the content because I know there has to be years of content here, and I've only seen what's been posted.
Yeah. So there is. I have an extensive library, but it's a finite amount. Eventually, I'm going to run out, right? So this backyard wrestling history has a lifespan to it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to milk this for as much as I can, keep this going as long as I can. Not all that footage is good. So I'm trying to just showcase the best. I don't want to put anybody on blast. I'll put some people on blast when they deserve it, but I'll put myself on blast when I deserve it. But I'm trying to give everybody their flowers.
Yeah.
Give everybody, a chance to have the spotlight. Because one thing that I always took for granted is that I have all these tapes. I have access to this whenever I want.
Yeah.
Nobody else does. Well, I mean, I gave you copies,
Yes.
but most people don't. There's a lot of people I talk to where it's like, I haven't seen this stuff in 20 years. So me doing these videos and putting it out there, it's now an opportunity for people to show their kids, like, hey, look what I used to do when I was your age. And people get to experience this all over again. And it's like, how many people have, all this footage from their childhood? We were like 13, 14 when we started. I was 20 when I finished. Like, those are the wonder years right there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, it's normal to have like photographs when you're little, but teenagers, they get moody that I don't want to be in the family photo. I don't take a picture of me, mom. So it's really is a treasure.
Okay, so what matches do you two hate the most? That's what I want to know.
You want to know more, hate more than love, huh?
Well, I didn't even think I told you what my favorite one was.
Oh yeah. You did.
I just posted one about carrying a jobber to a good match.
Yeah.
Where I wrestled the TPG
Yeah,
for like 20 minutes and worked my ass off to make him look like a credible threat. Very proud of that match. Very proud of that match. So that's definitely got to be on the list. We did a match with RCW called the Rumble, where it was 4 of their guys and 4 of our guys, and it was elimination style. That match was just so much fun. There was like stuff going on everywhere, and it's just, you get to work with all these people all at once.
Right.
That was great. I had a match where me and the TPG teamed up to take on Nappy and the Executioner at this park in Richmond. And that match was a lot of fun because it was like 3 CCW guys and the worst RCW guy. But we had a crowd watching us. We got to have some real fun with that match. That one was a lot of fun to be in. I'm trying to think if I got any others. You name some. I've named a bunch of matches. You name some.
No, you're talking about matches we've been in, or just matches in general?
Just matches in general.
Okay, cool. All right. First off the top of my head, and this really, it was so good. I encouraged Phil to send it to like the backyard wrestling videotapes that used to come out back in the day. Call 1-800-whatever, you get the best in backyard wrestling.
Oh yeah, I used to see those commercials.
It was Anthony versus Nappy. And if I recall correctly, this match was set up because we had an invasion angle going on. And I don't want to give too much away because eventually I want to do an episode of backyard wrestling history on this. But like, the long story short was, my character is very frustrated with them feuding with each other, doing an interfeud. So I said, we're going to have the match to end all of all matches. You after this match, you table it till we're done, right? With this invasion angle. There was so much chaos going on outside the ring. And the wrestling in the ring was so good because you got Anthony, who is just Anthony. And then also like Nappy was good in his own right. And the moves were cool. Some of the things they did were zany, hitting each other with like easy back ovens. Meanwhile, we have like everybody decided to work their angle, their storyline, whatever you want to call it, during this match. For somehow it just universally everyone said this is a good time to get my shit in. We had people like it was B Money and 1 Ton of Money, if I recall correctly, were like B Money was like brawling with C Money. And then like who had a feud going on, and then like Travis, who we were calling the Scorpion Kid or the White Kid, depending on who you ask, B Money, was out there like chasing another wrestler with a kendo stick. So there was so much. There's all these brawls, these miniature brawls that went off during the match itself.
Right.
One of the most memorable things ever. Spoiler alert. It didn't make it to the backyard wrestling history tapes, but I think by then they had started doing like CCW stuff.
Yeah. Well, what had happened was I think Volume 5 had just come out, and I think that was the last one, or 4 had just come out and 5 was about to come out. So we like missed the window, and then they stopped releasing the tapes after that.
Yeah.
Well, what's crazy about that match is also like we didn't book a winner. We were just like, I don't give a shit who wins, just go.
Yeah.
And so they literally legit did not like each other in real life, and so they wrestled this match like almost like a shoot.
Yep.
But like they're still like protecting each other. And then I think Kid Crush ended up getting the win, but they just
It was just submission.
Yeah, they just legit didn't like each other. Like if I can ever track down Kid Crush, I will have him watch that match, and I'll put it out there.
Oh yeah.
So how do you go about getting people to work together if they don't like each other outside of the product that you're producing?
They understood that there was a bigger picture here, and they all wanted to wrestle. So there's no universe where Chris isn't going to say that Anthony isn't capable of being a good wrestler or having a good match with him. And Anthony was the sort of person that felt like, he knew he could have a good match with anyone. So they were going to put their BS aside to go out there and have a good match, which is kind of the, sort of the reverse logic of wrestling on another angle where you have people that on storyline are feuding and hate each other, but in real life they're best friends.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like it's like there's people at your job who you don't like, but you still got to get along and be professional. It's kind of the same thing here. It's like, hey, we're trusting each other's well-being. I might not like you, but I'm not going to drop you on your head.
Okay.
Right. So that was like me and Nappy have not always got along, but we still wrestled dozens of matches with each other, and I never deliberately tried to hurt him.
Right.
He didn't deliberately try to hurt me, except for that one time he dropped me on my head.
I'm still convinced that was an accident. I'm still convinced that he never intended to drop anyone. It just mistakes.
I don't know.
You know.
I mean, you know.
I did a whole video on close calls. He's 90% of that video.
Wow.
You know,
Bad angles, I would say. I don't know. I'm not.
Well, the problem we have with a lot of us is, spoilers. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're not trained. We're just trying to figure all this out.
Yeah.
And so
very self-taught.
sometimes we would try things that play out a certain way in our head, and they don't come out that way. And rather than practice stuff first and then do it in a match, we would just try stuff in a match and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And usually it didn't work out that way.
Especially in the PWL era. CCW, you guys would often work out things in your backyard, right?
Yeah. Well, we had to, because when we were doing CCW, we were putting on shows at the park down the street from my high school, and our whole thing was we now have an audience. For the longest time, we didn't have an audience. We were our audience. Well, now we have people coming from my school every week to watch us wrestle. So now we're getting instant feedback to everything we're doing, and it's making us really analyze everything we do when we're putting these matches together, because we're like, why did this get a response but this didn't? This hurt way more. And we're trying to figure out how to get people invested in what we were doing, get people invested in the stories we were telling, make people give a shit about who wins and who loses. And it was a big learning experience. And so we knew we don't want to come out here and look like a bunch of chumps. We got to figure this shit out before we get to the park. We got to make sure we're all on the same page when we get there, because now, we're putting on a show for an audience, and we can't fuck up. There's no fixing it in post when there's an audience there who sees everything we're doing.
Yeah.
I was really surprised your mom let y'all practice after banning it wholesale. I was like, when I learned that, I was shocked, because I think I came by one day or I saw some footage. Like, wait, you're still using the backyard? Like the fuck.
Okay, so this brings me to a question that you've already that you brought up multiple times while we've been doing this. How did you guys draw an audience?
So when we were wrestling by my school, it was all kids from my high school, and my big thing was, this was late 2003 going into 2004. The wrestling boom period was over, so wrestling isn't as popular as it was in its heyday. And so I knew, I have to find an angle that I can use to get people interested in what we were doing. So I was able to use kayfabe. Yeah. Kayfabe is old wrestling jargon, making people think what they're seeing is real.
Yeah.
So I would legit tell people at my school, hey, what you're seeing on TV every Monday and Thursday, that's our shit. Our shit's real. That's fake. Our stuff's real. Yeah. And I would speak in promo when I'd be in school. When I was champion, I'd bring the belt with me. I'd be walking down the hallway with the CCW championship on my shoulder. And then people would be like, what's with the belt? And they'd be like, this is the CCW Backyard Wrestling Championship. And this Thursday, Kid Crush is in for... And I would just speak in promo the whole time.
I do remember that, because I know, even though it was only for a short period of time, and I had just shown up to the school and whatnot, and we didn't hang out every day, so I didn't... But when I catch you, occasionally, I do catch you in character.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it then. So I was just kind of lost in translation.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we did that was a big help is when we did our first show in front of an audience, we tried to make it wrestling focused. We tried to just wow people with our technical prowess,
right?
And they were bored to tears, right? Because again, these aren't wrestling fans. Wrestling is not popular right now. So our first show in front of an audience, I think we drew 20, 30 people. Our second show, we had 5. So we were like, okay, we got to do something here to get people interested. So that's when we started doing these crazy spots. I lit the Grim on fire with a flaming chair. We would do stuff with barbed wire and thumbtacks. We would do all these crazy hardcore spots, because then we knew the people who went would talk about it, and then word of mouth would spread. So after I lit the Grim on fire, the next week, all of a sudden we had 15, 20 people again.
Okay.
And so, but we also knew, look, there's a ceiling. We can only push this so far.
Right.
So we would really try and be strategic with what we were doing. We really tried to be practical with what we were doing. We didn't want to just do crazy spots for the sake of crazy spots. We really wanted to make sure everything had a purpose. It wasn't just there for the sake of being there. It's there to get people excited and make people come check out our shows so they see what we do next.
Right.
But it's also there to further these feuds, further these storylines, and help get people involved in everything we're doing. And it worked because then by the time we started doing the feud with RCW, people had been coming to our shows for months at this point. They knew who we were. They were investing in what we were doing. We were able to pull back on all that hardcore stuff and slowly wean them off of it to the point where our second to last show, Kid Crush and Poe have a wrestling match for the world title, and there's not a weapon in there, not a drop of blood. It's just a straight up wrestling match. And they got a standing ovation from this crowd that just 6 months prior was bored to tears.
Right.
Now, during this time, you would ask me what I was doing. I forgot to mention, you may remember this, but I was promoting CCW whenever I could.
Yeah.
Because it's like, even though I wasn't involved, I still wanted to be involved somewhat. And like, I remember doing my senior year, Avid. No, it was my junior year. I said Avid. And then like I did a project where we had to do a presentation, and my whole thesis was like, violence can actually bring people together. And like, it was basically my excuse to like show some CCW stuff and highlight, how our organized violence actually, was a good thing, because it provided a social sector for a certain group of young people. And like, if nothing else, you could probably say one thing I've been doing since the onset, even up to now, is for every media thing I've ever been involved in, as a marketer. The walking advertisement for the thing, But yeah.
So Martin, I have to ask you this, because Phil has brought it up. I have to ask you personally. How come you were never in character when promoting these matches, or even showing the tapes? Because I know you showed the tapes to me when we were in high school. How come you never were in character?
My character on screen, depending on like what era we're talking about, and like which character we're talking about. Like the Bones character, for example, I wasn't going to do, because I put on a rubber mask and pretended to be some satanic cult leader risen out of the ashes of hell's, scape. But the Canine character was pretty close to who I was, like off camera. Like he was, maybe dialed up to 11 because the stakes are super high, but it's like, if Canine's a high school student, going to classes and wanting to be successful, the academic drive, it's like I just took that same energy and said, well, I want to do well in wrestling. I want to be, I was kind of the same guy.
So
right?
Basically that was your character.
That was my character. Now,
okay.
I feel like with Xavier Lascano, there was an evolution to sort of, I think he's, the Xavier Lascano character, which came after the CCW like live show run, there's more emphasis on talking. Right. There's more emphasis on being verbose, because I was just a manager. So, but yeah, like again, it was just Joaquin dialed up to like 13 and 13 and a half.
13 and a half.
Because I mean, the heroic Canine, like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I guess we're not too different.
Okay, so
not too different.
So Phil, where did you get a lot of your ideas from? Or let me be more specific. Outside of the Invasion angle, which we all know was WWE post WCW, post the Monday Night Wars and stuff like that. Where did you draw a lot of your storyline ideas from?
So a lot of it was we wanted to kind of be a sponge for the wrestling business, because now that we're doing it, we wanted to cherry pick and find all these things we could do to kind of give us our own voice, give us our own style, make us stand out from everybody else. So what we would do is, we would watch WWE, we'd watch TNA, we'd watch Ring of Honor, we'd go to indie shows out here in the area. I'd get tapes from Mexico and Japan, and we'd watch Japanese death matches. We'd watch lucha libre shows from Mexico. Like, we would just kind of be a sponge and soak everything up that we could, and we could see like what everybody was doing, and we could cherry pick the bits that we liked or the bits that we thought we could do and put our own spin on it. So it was just, and this is all before YouTube. YouTube wasn't a thing when we were doing all this. So this is like buying VHS tapes off of the internet and doing tape trading and all this stuff to find all this stuff and make it work.
Yeah. And and as a person who watched WWE for, at that time, I don't know, 2-3 years, because I really wasn't into it. You know, when I see the tapes that you guys produced, you know, it always had that feel like, okay, well, at least these guys are, you know, it almost seems like you guys were actually, you know, producing something that could be on TV, because, you know, unfortunately you don't have like the ring, or you don't have the side, what are those things called,
The guardrails.
No, not the guardrails.
Titantron.
No, the well, that too, definitely that too, because that would have been actually cool. But I'm talking about the commentator desk and the ringside area and the stuff under the ring. You know, you were basically doing that with, as Phil mentioned, bed sheets and poles that you got from the side of the street.
Or like in terms of Titantron, a big screen TV that we would sit out on for like the free previews, we called them.
Yeah, I remember.
And we would upload. Phil would create a music video for you, and then pair it with your, you know, pop it in the VHS and play it on the big screen. So when you come out the ramp, your music's playing just like in WWE.
Yeah, I had one of those big rear projection big screen TVs, and I would wheel it out next to the entranceway and then set up a VCR and run a long ass coaxial cable so I could play. And then because we're out in the sun, you can't see the fucking screen anyway, so we only did it like a handful of times.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, if you were doing Titantron, how come we never seen it?
And that's why, just the technical limitations of it. I remember there was a DVD WB did called The Rise and Fall of ECW.
Yeah.
Right. And on there, Paul Heyman had talked about his philosophy with ECW, and he was just like, I wanted to accentuate the positives and hide the negatives. We don't have the same production value as WWF and WCW, so let's not even go there. Let's go the opposite direction. Let's do something they're not doing. And so I kind of took that to heart with what we were doing. It's like, okay, we don't have a ring. We don't have a nice fancy entranceway. We don't have any of these things you see on TV. So instead of trying to emulate that, let's go a different direction. Let's find a way where we can make what we have available to us make sense. And let's make the most out of what we got.
Okay, so you mentioned Paul Heyman, and we all know that he is he's worlds above a lot of people when it comes to content creation space, because, you know, he's great when he's on the microphone.
Yep.
He knows how to take those bumps, even though he has nothing to do with the actual hands-on parts of wrestling. Who would be your biggest influences as far as trying to make wrestling work?
Paul is definitely one of my major influences. To a smaller extent, I would also say, you know, Eric Bischoff. I just admit, I know he is the head of a failed company, but when they were doing things right, they were doing things right. And there, there's stuff that worked, right? And then, like, you can't not say, to a degree, especially back then when we were kids, Vince, you know what I mean? Vince clearly had a lot of things going that did work, as far as how to make a wrestling show work. So those three, for sure.
Right.
Back then. Now I have a wider sort of scope of who I would call on, but back then as kids, it's like, yeah, for real.
Phil?
No, so definitely Paul Heyman. You know, just the way he's able to accentuate someone's negatives, or accentuate somebody's positives and hide their negatives, play into somebody's strengths. Mm-hmm. You know, you have wrestlers on there like, 911 and New Jack who They're very limited. They're good at one thing.
They're good at
so
one.
all we're going to do is focus on the one thing you can do. All 911 can do is choke slam. That's all he's going to do. We're not going to put him in a 20-minute catch can wrestling match. He'll just run in and choke slam everybody because that's all he can do. But we'll get him over doing that.
Okay, so now one of the things that I love in wrestling is when you have the face versus heel, and the heel starts acting cowardly, and he's scared when the guy is in front of him, and he ambushes him constantly and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, when the baby face starts looking like he's about to get some momentum, the heel is just scared because it's like, oh no, I'm gonna lose this match at the pay-per-view. Did you guys ever try to emulate those sort of situations when you were doing backyard wrestling?
So what you're talking about here is psychology.
Psychology, yes. I didn't know that we used that sort of word when it came to.
No,
wrestling psychology is definitely a thing.
Yeah, no, we definitely would. For me, what was a big thing was Raven. You remember Raven?
Yeah. What about me?
Yeah, Raven had done a series of interviews, I think with High Spots or RF Video, one of the two, called Secrets of the Ring, where he would break down like match psychology and match structure, and that's where we learned about shine and heat and comebacks. And watching those really kind of taught me how to put a match together and how everything should build, how do you make everything matter. If we're just going back and forth the whole time, there's no drama, there's no story. But if you have the baby face, get some shine in the beginning, and then the heel has to cheat to get the upper hand, and then the heel gets most of the offense in, and the baby face is trying to make a comeback, and the heel keeps cutting them off, and then the baby face makes that fiery comeback at the end. Now there's drama. Now people are invested. So doing that, watching shoot interviews, listening to as much stuff as I could to just kind of figure out like the ins and outs. And then once you start hearing that, you start noticing it on TV, and you start saying, oh, I get it now. And you start figuring out what they're doing.
Okay, so how did you guys specifically learn about wrestling psychology? Because for me, when I was trying to see through the smoke and mirrors, I was trying to see it, but then I get captivated. I get captivated in the drama. So how did you manage to be able to block it out and still be able to understand and learn without getting brought back in to what you're enjoying?
Study with with the intention to learn. As Phil mentioned, you watch interviews with wrestlers. It's having a resource like a wrestler come and tell you how this works is better to learn than just simply by watching. Because if somebody is really a good magician, you're gonna have a hard time figuring out how the trick works by just watching them. But if you have another magician explain to you how that trick is done, you'll be able to spot it a mile away once they're doing it.
Okay.
So, or if you watch a poor magician try to, some magicians, not a magician that's broke, but a magician that's not very good.
Okay.
Like you'll be able to see like, oh, well, this is where the bird was supposed to come from because they're making mistakes, right?
Right.
And you can watch a bad match maybe and kind of, I know that there's different like philosophies and aesthetics to wrestling. Like in Japan, they prefer a much more competitive match. Doesn't matter what story you're telling. They treat it more like a sport. And in America, in the United States and Canada, we tend to like want more story-driven stuff in our matches where the heel has the obvious advantage and the face is really, really struggling, or squash matches and that kind of thing. The concept of getting over. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off.
No, I was say, a lot of it was also just trial and error. Yeah. When we had that audience, we're getting instant feedback to everything we're doing, so we can see what works and what doesn't work, and then we're able to kind of tailor what we're doing to that. We're like, okay, well, they reacted well to this. How can we recreate those circumstances? How can we get them invested in what we're doing? So you try stuff, and you see, right away if something worked or something didn't, because you can tell whether based off the crowd reaction.
Okay, so I've watched some outside of wrestling interviews with certain people, and one that really caught my attention because even though I've never seen him wrestle, I've actually got to know who this person was through Dark Side of the Ring. I'm sure you've already mentioned him before, New Jack. So I never knew who he was until actually I've seen Dark Side of the Ring. And one of the things that he said in an interview that he personally just hated, even though he's probably never met him or even seen him with his own eyes, or he said he hated Vince McMahon, right? Who was a guy that, whether you met him or not, in the business that you have just hated?
Disco Inferno.
that took no time.
God damn, I fucking hate Disco Inferno.
You wasted no time. Okay, what
You got somebody you hate?
You know, off the top of my head, not really. Like, I can't think of anyone where I'm like, I cannot stand you. I think that everybody, a lot of people in the industry have their flaws, and they have their good points. You know, fuck it, I'll say it. Vince, fucking Vince.
Yeah.
And not just because of the recent things. I kind of begrudged him because of the way he, like, I was a WCW fan when the war was going on, and when they absorbed the WCW talent rather than give them their just due, they just kind of like nerfed everybody except for like Booker T. And it really comes from Vince's inability to appreciate talent that was built up outside of his home base.
Right.
Like, if he didn't create you, he's not going to push you. He's going to use you as enhancement talent or whatever.
Yeah.
And I hold that grudge to this day.
Well, you would also hear stories that Vince wouldn't watch anything besides the WWE product. He wouldn't watch movies. He wouldn't watch other wrestling stuff. Like, that's all he consumed was WWE. And it's almost like, remember when the Snyder cut of Justice League came out?
Right.
And you could look at the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League, and you could clearly see how Joss Whedon screwed it up. Well, now that Triple H is in charge, it's almost the same thing because the product is so good now.
Oh yeah,
so
it is
fresh.
definitely
And
good.
now it's like night and day, and you can clearly look back. Yep, Vince was the problem.
Yep.
We had our suspicions, but now we have the proof. It was Vince.
It was
all
Vince.
along.
It's Vince this whole time.
Yeah.
My favorite New Jack story, though, I'm pretty sure he talked about it in the Dark Side of the Ring thing, was when he first came to Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Right.
Jim Cornette's the promoter, right?
Right.
And Jim Cornette's gonna and this is in the South, right? New Jack and Kama Mustafa, or Mustafa Saeed. Kama Mustafa, that's Godfather.
That's Godfather.
But New Jack and Mustafa Saeed, they were the gangsters. And they're hated in the South, right?
Obviously.
And I remember, the story goes that Cornette was going to have him go out there and cut a promo, and New Jack's, well, what do you want me to say? I don't know, just make white people mad at you. and so New Jack comes out there and cuts a promo after his match, and he was just like, I just want to give a shout out to my homeboy, O.J. Simpson. Keep up the good work.
That'll make everybody hate you.
That'll make everyone hate you. Like that. You were. If he wanted to make people mad, I'm willing to bet he did it that night.
Oh my gosh, keep up the good. Because even people that were pro O.J. Simpson who think he didn't do it are gonna get. Are you insinuate he did it? Fuck you. Like, he's innocent. So yeah, he's
If the gloves don't fit, you must acquit.
Perfect heat.
I mean, I stand by that statement to this day.
Everybody mad at you.
So, Phil, now, as you know, I just asked, and you did not even hesitate for a little bit to say the person that you just hated. Mm-hmm. Is there so is it just, is it personal, or is it just
I never liked his gimmick. Like, I always thought his gimmick was stupid.
It was.
When you hear him in interviews, like, I think he does that Keeping It 100 podcast with Conan. Like, I don't agree with, like, any of his opinions he said about anything wrestling related or otherwise. And it's just, even when he wrestles, I never thought he was a great wrestler. And it's just, I don't know, there's nothing about him redeeming.
I remember being very disappointed when he showed up on TNA simply because for a while, TNA was like, who's going to show up? What new talent? Or either what amazing new talent are we going to get to see that you're not going to see at WWE ever? Or what old talent is going to pop up for randomly and make some sort of interesting impact? And they had everybody on the Maximo's amazing Red, just amazing talent. And then they had callbacks like Percy Pringle. The Undertaker,
Oh yeah. That's
showed up one day maniacally laughing. I don't know what came of that, but he was like, "What's he doing here?" I'm like, so that's the guy. Like Tony Chevalier came and gave a random heel promo, and it was gone. So imagine my disappointment when all people, Disco Inferno comes in the ring. Glenn Gilberti. I'm like, even his real name sucks. Gosh, like, but like I didn't hate him. But Vince. Vince struck me as like a bully, a manipulator, and just not a nice fucking person, and that's why I hate him.
Well, because you hear all these stories about, Triple H, and even when he would do like the Cruiserweight Classic, and when he was booking NXT,
I actually like that.
I love the Cruiserweight Classic.
I love the
You can
Cruiserweight
see how
Classic.
open he was to like working with other promotions, bringing in fresh talent. You could see all the people from NXT who then got called up to the main roster and then got buried and got squashed.
Yeah.
Fucking Tyler Breeze was a star when he left NXT. He was a nobody when he got to the main roster.
Yeah, pretty much. That was it. Yeah.
But you also look at some of the stuff he's doing now, and it's like you hear Mark Henry shared a thing where like all these WWE veterans got like New Year's cards in the mail from WWE.
Class act.
Like, hey,
Class
we
fucking
appreciate
act.
you. We appreciate your contributions over the years.
Yeah, the old
Happy
man
New Year.
would never. The old man
and
would
like you get the
never.
sense that Triple H actually like gives a shit, and he
cares,
actually
yeah.
likes wrestling,
Yeah.
and wants to have good wrestling.
So
The fact that Cody Rhodes has been champion all year long and has been selling merch and been selling out and has been their top face, Vince, I don't think would have done that.
No. Vince
he
would have put it
wouldn't.
back on the Rock.
No, Vince would have had
Would have
Brock.
fumbled that whole.
Vince would have had Brock
bloodline
squash him
situation.
at like the next pay-per-view or
Oh yeah, like he did Kofi Kingston.
like he did Kofi Kingston.
Okay, so I want to ask this because I know we talked about influences and stuff like that. So, who is your favorite past wrestler and favorite current wrestler?
You want to go first? You need time.
I need
'Cause
time.
an
Go ahead.
answer.
Go ahead.
You got time? You need time?
Yeah.
You need time.
It's weird to say present because the dude's been wrestling for almost 25 years. But my two favorite wrestlers right now have been CM Punk and AJ Styles.
Okay.
And it's weird for them to be like, oh, current, because I started watching them in 2002.
Okay.
I started watching AJ Styles in TNA back in 2002 when he was X Division champion, feuding with Jerry Lynn and Low Key.
Right.
And I remember Raven in Ring of Honor CM Punk feuding with Raven in Ring of Honor.
I remember that. I saw that.
But then even to this day, like AJ Styles, he's earned that nickname phenomenal because he's incredible in the ring.
Right.
And he's not just a flippy dippy dude. Like he tells a story with everything he's doing. Even back in like 2004, he had a feud with Abyss, and he made Abyss look like a fucking $1 million bumping around for this guy. And then CM Punk is such a huge draw. When he came back to AEW, he sold out a stadium just on the rumor he would be there.
That and then
Like,
that surprise entrance he did at Survivor Series.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you go back to the first dance when he debuted in AEW, you had fans in the audience in tears.
I actually watched the So I'm not really that big on AEW, but when CM Punk, when Code of Personality started playing, I was just like the black guy who saw the Undertaker street get broken. I was just like,
it's still one of the biggest reactions in wrestling is his debut in AEW, because nobody thought it would happen. Because for 7 years, he was just burnt out and just done with the wrestling business.
Not to mention that whole fiasco with UFC and everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
So CM Punk and AJ Styles are definitely. They've definitely been my top two for a while. I still love Raven. Like in the late 90s and early 2000s, Raven was great. When he was in ECW, even his stuff in WCW, when he was feuding with DDP and stuff, that was great. So those are my. Because a part of me is like, well, you should probably pick someone newer than fucking.
Well,
AJ
I mean, you can use both.
To me, current just means someone that's doing it right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
So
I guess you can use both in the sense.
Although I'm not gonna lie, I do love me some Kevin Owens.
Oh,
I do love me.
Yes.
Y'all see I showed you the shirt he.
Kevin Owens is actually pretty amazing.
I love me some Kevin Owens. I hope he gets the belt again.
Me too. Here's to that next title run.
Let's go.
Joaquin, how about you, man?
Okay, so I got 2 and 2, honestly. My two favorite former wrestlers, Dean Malenko and Kurt Angle.
Dean Malenko and Kurt Angle. I used to love the work that Kurt Angle did when he first came out. His arrogance made you hate him, and I think he did that on purpose. It was, you're Olympic hero, and you should do this, and 3 eyes, and that was just like, I don't like this guy, and he did it on purpose. Dean Malenko, for me, I don't know.
It's one of those things where you had to be there, and you're a guy that's only watched WWE. His best work was not in WWE. His best work was in WCW.
Agreed.
There was actually him, that whole Radicals group. Like, I was a fan of all of them, like Perry Saturn, Dean, even He Who Shall Not Be Mentioned, Eddie Guerrero. Like, you know, before they moved to the E. They actually informed my style as a backyard wrestler, like the technical, the submission, the working people down, and the ground and pound, the make you tap. Like, they were my guys. And then, like, Kurt Angle is a favorite because of all the folks like, when I started watching WWE, it's because I didn't have a choice, because when I moved from Arkansas to here, I didn't have cable anymore. My grandparents were dead set against it. So I had to watch SmackDown. And here was this guy who was wrestling in the style that I really, and he was the only guy on the roster that was allowed to wrestle that way. It was always frustrating. Like, he's the only guy allowed to do belly to bellies. He's the only guy allowed to do submissions like that. I mean, Dean Malenko was there. Chris Benoit was there, but there was only so much they were going to do. Like, from the very beginning, from when I started, it took a while to get Dean up and Chris up, but Kurt was doing that from jump. And so I immediately lashed on to Kurt because he did what I liked. And then, like, Kurt had an amazing run in TNA. You know, some of the best wrestling he's had might have been, like, after he left the E. And, like, he was dope. And I say he, you know, old school former, because he's no longer wrestling like that anymore. Same with Dean. Current guy, you know, AJ Styles would have been my pick, but you've taken that, so I got to go with Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega can make anything look. The dude has wrestled a blow-up doll, and it still looks entertaining. You know what I mean? I know Jim Cornette hates his guts, but, like, you know, Kenny took a year off from wrestling last year to fight, like, a rare.
I think it was diverticulitis.
Diverticulitis, And, like, I've been watching him since he's come back. And he hasn't lost a step. Like, so, yeah, Kenny is one of the current GOATs. And your other guy was AJ Styles and CM Punk. Now, I haven't watched a lot of Punk. You know what I mean? Like, I remember back when, like, I know the Pepsi plunge was a dope idea, and I still think he should do it. But even though he's older and stuff, I still think he should fucking do it. You know, but he's not gonna do it. But
he did to Joe in Wembley.
No, oh yeah, that's right. Did to Joe in Wembley. But, like, yeah, I mean, Kenny Omega, and then, like, my up and comer, like, somebody that I'm really interested in seeing how their career grows, MJF.
Oh my God, that guy is such an asshole.
He's a great heel.
He is, and that's why he's a great heel, because he's such an asshole, and he's so freaking. Oh my goodness, he knows how to draw hate. Like,
now let me ask you this, because you said you're not an AEW fan. I'm not an AEW fan. I would like to hear why. Maybe we have this in common.
Okay, so honestly, and I doubt we have this in common, but honestly, I just don't know where to go to watch it. And for the most part, I don't have cable.
It's like on Max now.
Yeah, and I don't have that either. I have Netflix, which, by the way, shout out to my baby mama, because she pays for my Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah. So and for the longest time, I also had Hulu, which while AEW is on there. I watched a few episodes here and there, but I really wasn't drawn to it because it was more so for me, it just looked more like a nostalgic act than it was actually, you know, wrestling. So you you go to AEW, you tune in, and what do you see? You got Jim Ross at commentary with Taz. You got you got wrestlers like the guy who formerly known as Jack Swagger. You got the guy from New Japan Pro Wrestling. I can't remember his name. You got Kenny Omega. You got Edge and Christian. Excuse me. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. Cope and Christian Cage.
Yeah, now it's just Cope.
Yeah, Cope and Christian Cage. The Hardy Boys. Daniel Bryan. You have the list goes on. It's just like you're seeing guys who, while I do enjoy their work, I was seeing it at the other place, and now they're all just here, and it's a lot of older guys too. And it's like, I do like to see new up and coming in development, and I just don't see that with AEW.
Okay. You want to know why I don't like AEW?
Of course I do.
Okay.
This is the point.
So first of all, I'm glad AEW exists.
Yeah.
Competition is a good thing.
Yes.
Giving people places to work is a good thing.
Yes.
More power to AEW.
Yes.
I don't necessarily like the style of the product they put out because it seems like every match is super kick dive, neck bump on the apron, Canadian Destroyer, pop up, hit your own Canadian Destroyer, pop up and do the fight stance. It's like there's no psychology in anything. I love flippy dippy shit. But I love flippy dippy shit when there's psychology and there's storytelling and it matters. And when you're just popping up after every flippy dippy move to hit your own flippy dippy move, none of those flippy dippy moves mean anything.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge fan of that. And then the whole thing with how they botched Punk. The whole thing with CM
goodness,
Punk. They have one of the biggest stars in wrestling. And there's people on the roster sabotaging him and undermining him. And you have a boss who refuses to be a boss. And then things get out of hand. It's like when you have Adam Page in an interview say, I don't need to take advice from legends. I'm doing pretty good. My best friends run the company and I'm champion. First of all, you're a fucking idiot. And then you're going to let that guy go off script on CM Punk on live TV and then there's no repercussions? Really?
Yeah, that
CM Punk's your golden goose. How do you not look out for your golden goose?
That
and then you have people
me.
We don't know if it was the Young Bucks. We had some people spreading rumors that Punk was the reason Cabana wasn't on TV, even though Cabana wasn't on TV for 8 months before CM Punk got there. And it's like, how do you not nip that in the bud? And it's just, how do you botch that whole thing with CM Punk? He's your biggest draw. And you just let people on your roster act immature and selfish and undermine him and sabotage him? I can't. The whole fucking thing with Jungle Boy, with Jack Perry.
Yeah, that was just ridiculous.
The best part is when CM Punk did that interview with Ariel Helwani and he explained what happened.
Yeah.
And then Tony Khan showed the security footage and it played out exactly like CM Punk said.
Right.
He told no lies.
It's like, and it's like when you screw over a guy like CM Punk, you're basically asking to fail.
Well, I saw somebody, they took the clip from his interview with Ariel Helwani where he explained what happened backstage with Jungle Boy.
Right.
And then underneath it, they put the actual security footage that Tony Khan aired. And then one of the comments was like, wow, it lines up like beat for beat.
Yeah.
And then the reply to that was, yeah, that's usually how the truth works.
That's usually how the truth works.
Yeah. So, I will say this much, man. Like, I get the critique, but my thing is like, I missed the whole Punk being there bit because I too didn't have a way to watch AEW until, like, honestly, like all the stuff I've seen of Kenny Omega has been things like on YouTube. It's been or a Vimeo or stuff like that, right? For example, the Young Bucks, same thing with the Young Bucks, I'm also a fan of. And I've seen me and you went to a pay-per-view that a friend was hosting a party. And I remember that pay-per-view, it was All In, right?
Yeah.
It's All In. And then and then I think it was it Full? I can't remember the pay-per-view where this happened, but it was like MJF had essentially won AEW's version of Money in the Bank, and he was masked up though. No one knew it was him. And then at the end of the proceedings, CM Punk after his match, MJF comes out and he's like, "Deal with the devil." No. Setting up this like he's gonna come for Punk's title, which I was like, "Ooh, shit." And then like that whole stretch, the politics of what happened and went down, I was unable to watch AEW during that time. Yeah. So. And a lot of Punk's run I haven't seen. You know what I mean? So I really don't know how good of a wrestler he is. I get the sense that he's well beloved.
So here's what's great about Punk. He's been in WWE this whole year, right?
Yeah.
All through, he got injured in the Royal Rumble last year.
Yeah, he did.
He was out for most of the year. Still had one of the top feuds of the year with Drew McIntyre. Couldn't wrestle. Had one of the best feuds of the year.
That moment at WrestleMania, I think, is what sealed it for me. When he did the whole leg sweep on Drew McIntyre after he wins the title.
Laid him out with the brace.
And then he gets cashed in on.
Yep. Damian Priest won.
Just after winning the title.
But I mean, even their promos were great. Because
the
like,
promos
they weren't holding back. And Drew McIntyre's like, you don't drink, you don't do drugs, you don't smoke, but you spend all your time in rehab.
Yeah.
Fucking great line.
Right.
And what's a trip is like, when he was in AEW, you would hear stories about like how the young guys don't want to take advice from the older guys. They think they know everything. People were calling CM Punk a cancer.
Yeah.
But then it was in WWE, it's the opposite. Everyone's like, this guy's amazing. This guy's great. We're glad to have him.
But they still ran the storyline of him being a cancer because Drew McIntyre said it himself a few times. But as part of the story rather than being it true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And rather than doing it on some stupid YouTube show, you did it in a way where you could sell some tickets, make some money off of it.
I find it ironic that one of the things I remember when we were talking about CM Punk's history was that CM Punk would often buck up against like the establishment.
Yeah.
And the problem with AEW is now that CM Punk is on the other, he is the establishment now. Yeah. And the younger talent is bucking up against him. And right or wrong, maybe it's just kind of natural for some of younger people to like sort of stupidly bump up against their older betters. Yeah. And we got to kind of learn to like listen to what folks have to say. Because my critique on CM Punk, and I'm going to keep that same energy. I don't think Adam Page was being fair with Punk because Punk's done this longer than him, been more successful than him. There's things to learn. And even if you feel like, and this is also reflected on Punk too, because that Tony Atlas thing and the Freebirds thing, and CM Punk was like, well, why should we listen to you? My attitude is, even if you disagree with the person they've sent to be your teacher, disagree respectfully. Be a little humble about it. Yeah. And I think it's kind of cool that Punk's on the other side of that now, where it's like, hey, you're not listening to my experience, motherfucker. Like, I think it's kind of cool.
Like, did you see the interview he did with Ariel Helwani?
No.
Okay. So he talked about the issue he had with Jungle Boy, with Jack Perry, right? Mm-hmm. Where Jack Perry wanted to do a spot where he like threw somebody through the windshield of a rental car. And CM Punk is like, no, that's stupid. That's real glass. You're going to get hurt for real. And then what, you're going to bring the rental car back with no windshield? Then the rental car company doesn't want to rent cars to wrestlers no more and you fuck over all the boys. Like, if you're going to do that on a pay-per-view or do that on Dynamite and do it in a way where we can gimmick the fucking car so you're not slicing yourself up with real glass for no reason. Yeah. And then Jack Perry had a fucking boo-boo face and was mad that CM Punk told him, no, you can't use real glass. Yeah. And then on the fucking the All In at Wembley, fucking did the spot anyway, and then like looked in the camera and went, oh, cry me a river, it's real glass. Like mocking CM Punk like live on pay-per-view. And it's like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I totally agree with Punk in that case. It's like...
it's something you brought up.
And I don't disagree. I just think it's kind of... I just said, I think you should listen to your elders. And even if you disagree, and maybe your elders can sometimes be wrong, but at least, show some respect. Yeah. And that guy was clearly disrespectful. Yeah. Now, furthermore, I've been watching AEW recently because I have a show with Evan, called Sicko Mode on YouTube. And we're, 3 episodes deep? And, I've been able to watch it on Max and consistently for the last 3 weeks. And I know it's like a toe in the water compared to like the 2 or 3 years that they've been running. But from what I have seen, like the psychology you're describing, hadn't really been there in the shows that I've been watching. And maybe it's because they understand that because they have this new debut, they're going a different direction. It's still a lot of the athleticism and the flippy dippy things that like you and I both like, but I feel like they look more like competitive matches. And for further review on those episodes, you can check that, you can check out our stuff. But not to give too much away, but I will say I'm enjoying the product so far, and it is very story driven, both in and out of the ring, and it is a little bit more sports driven as well. That's one thing I really like, this notion of like, no, we're gonna have a tournament. No, we're gonna have, because the E for years didn't even have a traditional King of the Ring.
Right.
They went, I know they're a bit different now, but like, and I'm not one to hold a grudge, but that's why I like AEW. Is the presentation just seems to be just a perfect blend of like sports and storytelling.
And you know what? And I'm glad they're there. Because look, as bad as WCW was in 2000, it's better than WCW in 2002 because there was no WCW.
There was no WCW in 2002. Yeah.
Right.
So, favorite finisher, go.
My favorite finisher. I'm not gonna lie, I love the diamond cutter.
Okay.
There are times I'll be walking with my friends and I'll just get the fucking hurt, and I gotta like control myself. I love the diamond cutter. I love the super kick because you can hit them on anybody and they can come at it anywhere.
Yeah.
And then especially with like the way DDP and Shawn Michaels would always find different ways to bring them out of nowhere. DDP would Irish whip somebody, somehow turn that into a fucking diamond cutter.
Right.
So those two are always my favorite.
Lucky.
Funny you should say that, Phil. Are you gonna do least favorite finishers next?
Yes, we'll do that next. But let's.
Okay, my two favorite finishers: the figure 4 leg lock.
Okay.
Again, you can do it on anyone. Size doesn't matter. There's a certain psychology there's a buildup that goes to it. You got to work the legs, the knees, as creatively as you can. And then once the drama of, will you be able to snap that leg over the other one? Will he be able to hold you off? That's such a great, My second favorite finisher of all time has got to be the angle slam.
The angle slam. Yeah, that was a good one.
It's such a snappy, quick, violent bump of a move, and it's not something like, I'm gonna dunk you on your head. It feels like something that an Olympic style wrestler would use as a finisher, and I think that fits Angle's character so perfectly.
Yeah.
And nobody really does it to this day except for Angle. Yeah. So
I think who was it? I think I don't want to. No, not Luke Harper. He did the clothesline from hell. I want to say somebody in WWE did it for a minute, or was it AEW? One of them, they did the angle slam for a little bit, but it was only for a short while. But yeah, Kurt Angle is actually.
Do you have a favorite finisher?
Yeah. So while I wanted to say the super kick, because don't get me wrong, I love me some Shawn Michaels. I love that super kick. It became. I
love the super kick as a finisher, as a regular ass move.
I hate it because it's just overused. But my favorite finisher, and for the longest time wasn't used as a finisher, but until recently, it's the Almighty Spinebuster.
Okay.
Now, the Almighty Spinebuster is a variation of a spinebuster originated by WWE legend and the first ever African American champion of any wrestling sports world, Ron Simmons.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He was the first one. He did it for WCW 1992, and I really loved it. And when he started, when I first started seeing it, he always made it flow. There was rhythm to it. It was art, and then on top of that, it actually displayed his actual strength. So it was always cool when he would be able to just lift him up, he'd still be standing and just slam him with one hand. And then when you see David Otunga do it, I believe he called it the verdict at the time. It was like, oh my God, he's so cool because he always shows off his physique because he was a bodybuilder and he always wanted to make it, look like he was actually as strong as he was flexing. And then out of nowhere, Bobby Lashley just decides he starts the whole Hurt business before it became the Hurt Syndicate. And he just goes out there and he makes you feel it. He wants you to feel him. And when he does it, it's just like he is showing you, he's basically trying to be the Beast 2.1, because he is showing you that he means business when he drops that move on you. So I'm going with, and I'm gonna just call it the latest version of it, the Almighty Spine Buster.
Can we talk about finishers we fucking hate?
I want to start with you on that. Let's do that.
Okay. All three of these kind of fall in the same category, and it's Umaga's I'm gonna hit you with my thumb. Jericho's spinning back elbow, and it's Big Show and he is doing the knockout punch.
Oh, come on! Don't do the Big Show like that. I love that move.
Because here's the deal. I'm like, it's a punch.
But it's a punch.
Everyone does a punch.
No, but that's the difference. It's a punch from a big man.
You know what's more impressive than a punch? Big Show's giant ass choke slam he was already doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Jericho's spinning back elbow. You know what's a better finisher? The Code Breaker.
The Code Breaker was way better.
I would argue that
so
the
when
Lion Salt was also.
The Lion Salt was I love the Lion Salt.
Jericho was also better.
I'm not going to get excited off a punch when every match has people punching each other.
But-
That's not impressive. Oh, he big. His hand's the size of the person's head. He already was doing the choke slam. That's a way more impressive move.
Yes.
But you gotta remember where that originated from though. When he started doing that punch,
with
he would
Mayweather, right?
no, not with Mayweather. It was before that. You gotta remember when people used to try to use chairs on him,
And he punched the
and
chair.
he would punch through the chair.
Yeah, I can't get excited over a punch. And it's like when Umaga would like tape up his thumb, and I'm gonna hit you with my thumb.
And I
Like,
believe
I'm supposed to be scared of a thumb.
I believe Solo does that move now.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
And it's still whack.
I can't. I'm not scared of your thumb, dude.
Yep.
All right, Joaquin, hit us with that finisher.
You know there's something you hate.
You know, actually there is. And
Hit-
I think it's kind of funny that like you gave that list because my list is similar. I hate every finishing maneuver that is a strike, including super kicks. And let me tell you why. There's only one person that gets to use the super kick, and it's called the Sweet Chin Music. And this is why. He does the build up with the stomp.
Yeah, the theatrics.
And he makes you believe that it could work. But I spent years watching guys like Steven Richards. Oh, what's his WWE debut? What's his finisher going to be? Oh, the super kick. Well, Lance Storm, is he going to do the Canadian Cloverleaf? Oh, they're making him do the super kick. Every new guy they bring in, your finisher is going to be a kick. And to me, a kick, a clothesline, a punch, as somebody that like watches like martial arts films, there's dozens of kicks thrown in them. Like, all you gotta do is block it. I don't think that a super kick or a clothesline or a punch or any striking move should be a finisher. Slams, yes. Submissions, yes, because guess what, folks? That's actually fucking wrestling.
What about the
It's
bro
a
kick?
wrestling move.
What about the bro kick?
That too.
Oh, come on.
too.
Come on.
That's the most uncreative thing in pro wrestling, in my personal opinion, is kicks. And I get why they do it, because it's easy, it's versatile. But like, if I wanted kicks, I'd watch the UFC.
Right?
If I wanted, I can't stand that shit. The big boot the Undertaker's big boot is a transitional move.
See, I agree. I see where you're coming from. I think it also depends on who's doing it, right? For example, the spear. I think Goldberg and Rhino have the best spears in the business. I love Goldberg's spear. I love Rhino's gore. They are fantastic.
And even then, that's a tackle. That's a wrestling. That feels like a wrestling move.
can't stand Edge's spear.
Yeah.
The running hug.
The running hug.
It's kind of
Oh
bad.
my
It
God.
doesn't look good on him. You're right. It doesn't look good on him.
All right, so
So
if
that's
I
where I come from, like,
if I had to choose a finisher that I hate, it would be Road Dogg's pump handle drop.
Oh.
It was
Is it because he does the gyrating before he...
it was because he did the gyrating before.
that's fair.
Because when I looked at all of DX's finishing moves, when I played the WWE games, I always chose the X Factor for my created character finishing move because I love the X Factor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the pedigree. You know, that it as you said, told a story.
Yeah.
Okay, when it came to the Famouser, it was just like, that's just so cool, right?
Yeah, the
You know?
finisher's cool.
But the pump handle drop is just like, you know, especially in this day and age, you are just asking for a lawsuit, okay?
Well, I remember it was at that tag match I had with Nappy. He hit the TPG with the Road Dogg's pump handle.
Yeah.
And he did the gyrating beforehand. But we all forgot Road Dogg used to do it that way. So you can literally hear the commentators go, "Oh, what the fuck? That's hella gay. Oh, shit. What the fuck?"
What is happening? What's grabbing his ass. Oh, he's trying to. What the hell? Oh! You know, when I said gay at first, I really thought so. But I just know.
And I would also like to mention that one of my finishers was the super kick. I didn't like the fact that I was using it, but I was using it so I could figure something else out. Frankly,
Is that why you hate super kicks?
no, I hated it even when I chose it.
Now,
Okay.
now let me ask you this, Ronald. You like wrestling.
I love wrestling.
You knew people who did backyard wrestling.
I knew people who did backyard wrestling.
How come you never wanted to do backyard wrestling?
So it was never that I.
outside of your house, if I recall.
Yeah. So okay. So
than
so
sports.
so Joaquin.
Backyard wrestling's a sport.
No. Joaquin has
Good referees.
does have some knowledges because you know you go to school with somebody for 3 years, you learn them, right?
See,
So
yeah. You and I
here
have
was the thing,
fingers.
right? Because I was gonna ask you this later. At first, I was gonna ask why y'all didn't invite me, right? But here's the
I didn't try to recruit you. You was a lie. I recruited everybody that looked like they were capable of moving around in the ring.
So here's the thing, right? Now, despite the fact that I was competing with this guy in academics, and I may not look it, but I was an honor roll student as well.
To this day, he still says I stole the U.S. History Award from him.
He stole the U.S. History Award from me. Okay.
If my current students are watching this, he is a lie and a true him. Shout out to Mr. Kirker.
Yeah. Screw you,
First
Mister.
person I ever sold a PWL tape to.
Yeah.
Mr. Kirker.
Yeah, no. Screw you, Mark Kirker, because you are the reason I didn't get that award. Okay?
So
you did this to me. You did this to me, okay? Okay? Du kannst sprechen Deutsche, okay? Du kannst sprechen Deutsche.
No, I don't speak German.
Yeah. How did you understand me?
I understood enough to know.
Okay.
I don't know.
So
not fluent.
basically, while I
watched a lot of
compete,
World War II
so
stuff, okay.
so to answer your question, and to his point, while I did compete with him academically and well, mind you, I mean,
Yes.
he still was ahead of me. I think except for one semester.
Gave me a run for my fucking.
Except for one semester, we actually had the same GPA,
Yes.
and that's because he slacked off. Shout out to your ex-girlfriend. Hi, Dominique. But yeah, outside of that, you know, believe it or not, I was virtually grounded the entire time I was in high school. The only time I actually had the ability to do anything outside of doing academics was I was looking for a job, which I failed miserably at because wasn't nobody hiring. Thank you, George Bush. And to do athletics. And as y'all both know, I was a two-sport athlete.
Yep.
And trust me when I tell you, I loved being a two-sport athlete. And considering that Phil was not an athlete, you said it yourself.
Never claimed to be.
Phil was not an athlete. Phil would have loved nothing more than to have had me wrestling for PWL for any of the backyard wrestling leagues that he was running, just so y'all can see a guy like me, 6'3", 130 pounds, soaking wet, just flying around all over the place, probably breaking my neck too. But I would have probably been somewhere on the line like, hey, Joaquin, clock me with a chair real quick. And then I come home later that day. Oh my goodness, my dad would. If I had lived with my mom, things might have been different. But living with my dad, yeah, it just wasn't happening. Okay.
I mean, backyard wrestling's a sport. We had referees.
Backyard wrestling obviously
And I
is
would argue that, like, you were, even though you weren't involved in an organized athletic competition, you still committed to some very athletic acts. I can't show this footage to somebody without accusing you or anybody in that ring of not being an athlete.
Yeah,
Granted, I don't show them everything, but you know the stuff I do show them. Like, yeah, y'all are athletes. I'm like, thank you.
yeah, Phil. I'd have to question your ability to be an athlete with considering the things that you had done. Now, granted, you didn't go to the gym or run around the track or anything and stuff like that.
Weights, nothing.
Okay, so
But
you weren't in shape, but a lot of the feats that you did, I would dare say, contributes to some sort of athleticism, because you weren't just sitting there taking bumps or just getting the hell beat out of you with a chair. You actually had to lift a person. Okay,
And I can't speak
in
for Phil.
in a controlled environment. And if you think about what lifting weights is, you are lifting something in a controlled environment, because you have to actually do a certain thing with this certain weight that you're carrying.
Yes, and also like I would, you're talking about long production days. We would like set up. That ring had to be set up back when the PWL days, the beginning of like before the show started. Props had to be set up, all that kind of thing. And like sometimes we would wrestle like 2 or 3 times in one day because we played multiple characters.
Yeah.
Phil was Craven, but he was also El Diablo.
I remember that.
I was either the Hound or K9, depending on what season we're looking at, and I was also Bones. And sometimes Phil would be El Diablo in one match, Craven in another, and Lucifer Z in later seasons.
Right.
So after all that, there was a workout for both of us.
Yeah.
We were both, everybody. I can't speak for him, but I know I was tired after a PWL show.
Like I'll say this, I would leave it all in the ring. I would take I wouldn't pull any punches. I would give it everything I got, and I'd be exhausted afterwards.
So I mean, that does count for some sort of athleticism.
Yeah, it was a workout, man.
Yeah, that's a workout. Yeah. Now,
I mean, trying to make TPG look credible, that's a workout.
there you go. So I would say, and because you were passionate about your craft, I would say that would actually put you, in that league of somebody who had to put some work in. You were getting it in. You were doing it. So I'm gonna have to ask. And I asked this before, but I got to ask it again. And I'm going to ask you this for the first time, too, since I'm asking him as well. What kept you away from athletics?
I just never liked sports. I was never into like basketball or football or baseball. They just didn't do anything for me. Wrestling was like the only like sport that I was able to get into, and it's for a lot of things. It's the athleticism. It's the death-defying stunts. It's the fact that it's live. You're doing all this stuff in front of an audience. There's no take two. There's no do-over. You're taking your own bumps. Wrestling's scripted, but you can't fake getting hit and falling to the ground.
I tell people that all the time.
And so the combination of all that stuff, the storytelling, like it all just resonated with me in a way that like sports never could. Even now, like my wife's family is big into football, but I watch football and it's 45 minutes of nobody doing anything, and then 30 seconds of people running into each other, and then somebody blows a whistle, and then another 45 minutes of them talking about the 30 seconds they ran into each other. And I'm like, this is fucking boring. Holy shit.
Oh my goodness! Did you just make fun of me just now?
I think he made fun of all.
He just made fun of me because I currently play football, right?
I mean, and more power to you.
Wait, are
right?
you
More power to
like
you.
in a league?
Yeah, I've been doing it for the past 7 years.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've actually invited Phil to a few games when we played out here. Sometimes I couldn't get you on the horn sometimes. So the current team that I play for is the Central Valley Heat, which is based out of Manteca, California, right? So that's just a little past Stockton. And I go there every weekend. I was actually just there yesterday. We were doing practice and stuff. The season starts in March. So everybody in California, y'all make sure y'all come and watch these semi-pro games, because if you talk about passion, this isn't even something we get paid to do. We have to actually pay to play. This is basically prostitution with football. No? Nobody?
You guys.
I am not landing these jokes today.
You paid to play, right? Yeah.
No, we pay to play.
You pay to play.
You pay to play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you got to understand, there are no sponsors. There's no TV. There's nothing being done on TV. There's nothing being promoted. There's no other way than to get this to be able to see this without word of mouth when you are at this level. Now, yeah, there are some teams who get those kind of things.
So you guys are basically a sports club.
Yes.
And
yes.
team. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So those are things you have to actually do. When you're playing semi pro, and so the most exposure that we'll get is when we post it on YouTube. But otherwise, it's mostly family and friends who come to those games.
As a semi-pro. Now, there are pro leagues that are outside of the NFL, but
Yes.
but they're a little bit above the semi-pro line, right?
Yes, so you have the USFL, you have the indoor arena football leagues. I don't know if you've ever heard of the San Jose SaberCats.
I've seen the commercials.
Yes, so they did that for a while. They had NFL Europe for a short time back in the early 2000s. I don't know what happened to that, but
French kept losing, so they decided to disband it.
The French kept. What is this? Why did
Got you.
He just hit me with a World War joke. Oh my goodness, my jokes is not landing, but he is killing the game today. See, this is why I'm not a comedian, because I am terrible at this.
No, you're funny. There's somebody. Look, funny thing about jokes, right?
I'm gonna have.
There's an audience for every joke, man.
When
somebody at home cracking up to everything that you've said so far.
Yeah, so Phil, I'm gonna need you to actually film me doing a comedy set one of these days. Get some makeshift laughter going in, because I actually have a comedy set that I want to do one of these days.
We know a guy.
We know a couple guys.
Yeah,
We know a couple guys.
yeah. So when it comes to athletics, so I have to ask you again. I have to ask you, because we asked Phil, why did you not want to get into athletics?
A lot of the same reasons as Phil. I had a basketball hoop in my backyard in Arkansas, and I would shoot it, and I would have friends over. But I much preferred to. I had like a bunch of those play weapons they used to come out with, like the Batman radar gun, or like the Proto Pack and all that kind of stuff. Super soakers, Nerf guns, whatever. I would prefer to just play a pretend game of Power Rangers or G.I. Joe, or play with my action figures with my friends that actually go out and do athletic stuff. Some of that came from the fact that I had cerebral palsy. It's not a condition you just get over.
Right.
And I had I had to go to physical therapy to strengthen one side of my body up, because that was the nature of the disability. And so I associated athletics with PE, which was like torture for me. Not PE, sorry, with physical therapy, which was like torture to me, because what physical therapy does is it tries to take you to your limit to get you. It's kind of like training, but it's training when you're helping somebody who's coming back from either an injury or a physical disability, where it's like you're teaching that body part. You're training that to go beyond its limit that it's got, and so that it is suitable for day to day. And so for me, I associated that with being pulled out of class and being really embarrassed. And so because of that, sports never really, really called my name.
Okay.
But when I saw wrestling for the first time, I did think it was real, and I told myself, like, man, if I ever was strong enough or agile enough, like, I would love to do that. That looks like so much. That just looks so cool. And then when I found out it wasn't real, like, even better. Like, now I can do it safely. All right. And then, like, it was so much the acting, the writing, like, and then, like, ironically, though, now that I'm older, my goddaughter, who I have been helping to raise since she was 2 years old, apple of my eye, she was always into sports.
Right.
I tried to introduce her to wrestling fairly early on. Didn't quite take, right? But she was a Warriors fan, so we would watch games together. I would take her out and play basketball with her when she was really little, because she used to say she wanted to grow up and become a professional basketball player. And she got into flag football. And this year, in our district, they've started a flag football league for the girls, and the high school that she goes to, where I also work, they're the first to be undefeated, and they got the trophy for this year. And I'm surprised. I've gone to every game almost that she's ever had, and cheering for her and going out there and coaching her. And I learned about basketball from her. She got a lot of practice from me. Has given me a lot of appreciation for the sports that I didn't have before. And so proud of that young lady. Shout out to Amira if she's watching this. I doubt she is.
Okay. So right. Also shout out to the K.
So let me ask you this: how do you feel about power slap?
I don't know what that is.
You haven't seen? I'm sure you've seen. Basically, power slap is this thing where.
Oh, the power slapping competition where they slapping each other.
Yeah.
I hate it.
I love it.
I hate it.
Power slap.
I hate it because it's like, dude, don't get me wrong. Nothing is greater than being able to just smack the shit out of somebody, right? But to make it a sport.
I want to know the genius who was like, all right, I got an idea. I'm gonna slap you as hard as I can, and then you're gonna slap me as hard as you can. Whoever falls down loses. I'll go first.
I seen one match where the guy gets ready, he gets to go, and when he smacks him, I mean, he smacked the Rocky Balboa into him. Okay, he went from normal to before he folded.
And it's legit like there's people there to catch you, so because you're gonna get knocked out.
You're gonna get So it's like and it just reminds me of the slap boxing of old. Something I also hated.
My favorite, the knockouts are great. My favorite is when a dude doesn't get knocked out,
and then it's like it's my turn.
Oh, fucked up
You're
now.
fucked up now. But yeah, when it comes to I just hate it because 9 times out of 10, and this is just from what I've seen, only from what I've seen. So let's make that clear. This is only a bias from what I have seen. 9 times out of 10, the guy who goes first wins. Like there's no coin toss, there's no build up. It's just, okay, this guy's going first, and we clearly see that this guy has a hand the size of a freaking car tire, and he's just winding up. He's got that powder on, and he's just and then soon as he cocks back and lets it rip, it's just like, oh yeah, he's going down. Do you not see that bicep? Okay, you know he's dead. He's dead. He's gonna die. Watch right here. He's gonna die. Yep. He's gone. He's gone.
Are you a fan of power slap? Do you like power slap?
I'm actually unfamiliar.
Oh my god, you've never seen power slap?
You have to actually, show him that. Now
I know there've been quite a few new sports that.
So you know about slap
like 10,
boxing, right?
15 years.
You know about slap boxing, right? Basically, it's not quite slap boxing because you're not defending yourself and trying to attack. It's not boxing in the traditional sense. It's more. You have to let me hit you, and then I have to let you hit me. And you
just keep going until
you keep going until one person drops. Now I don't know who can take constant. Now I've never seen one where people have gone multiple rounds. So it's like, I don't know anybody who can just get slapped on their left side 3 times and still be standing, because I get one and I'm done after the first.
Ouch. Did he just slap him with both hands?
No.
Did he just? Okay. Because it looked like.
Yeah. So that's basically. Put that on there. Put that on there in post production.
Are you allowed to backhand your opponent?
No.
Okay.
No, it's a straight slap.
Dude, open hand slap. Oh, it's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, you're gonna have to put that in the post production, Phil, so everybody can see that.
Wow, that's just like.
Well, now where's the one where dude got his face deformed?
I don't know if it's in this compilation. It might be in this compilation.
People are paying money to see the sport, huh?
And the matches don't go that long.
I would imagine so.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I definitely recommend power slap.
Okay.
Again, for me, I'm just not a fan.
Where are they touring? Can
no idea. I just watch them.
No idea. I just watch them on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like they just pop up completely at random.
Yeah. Oh. It's so good. It's a hell of a sport, my friend.
Now, I will not tell people to not watch it because that would be very disingenuous of me.
Probably has some information on it.
Usually you just find them at random.
But you gotta pay. It says right here, power slap.
Oh, there's an actual page.
Yeah,
they have an actual page.
Yeah, please send.
And then women do it too.
The balls on that bitch. Oh my goodness! And she just took it and blew a kiss.
Oh, that mouth guards.
Yeah.
With shit
See,
in my-
he just looking like it's nothing.
See, that's the best one. You don't get knocked out.
Look,
They're
look,
just like,
look,
oh,
look.
you know,
Did you not
fuck
just
them
see that?
now.
He just blacked his eye. He just blacked his
It looked
eye.
like his eye was black before the smack. Like maybe it was.
And then they're just like, oh, you know, fucked up now.
Look, that dude was mad as hell. He's just like, I know this dude really didn't just smack me.
So, yeah, you definitely got to check out Power Slap.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So again, like that's why I said it was
you
my
seemed pretty
bias.
excited watching those clips just now.
No.
From someone who's like,
No, because again, and this is my personal bias. Most of them that I've seen, it was just one and done.
That's all you need. That's all you need.
Apparently not. Apparently there are people who are who are going multiple rounds. Again, that was just my personal bias. But I still hate it.
It's like boxing, but it's like handicap boxing, basically.
I wouldn't even necessarily call it handicap boxing because again,
you
you
got
know
your
slap
arms.
boxing. You know about slap boxing.
I
This
know.
is like I said, you let me hit you and
Well, that's why I say handicap, because the person's not allowed to like guard, right?
yeah.
So it's like your arms are basically.
You're basically at the mercy
your
of how powerful this guy is. And I can tell you right now, not a single one of us would sign up for that. Phil, you'd be a
I think I could go.
no.
I could go.
Only if Phil's allowed to hit first.
Yeah, he would be the guy like I go first. Look, he'll be the guy that's like I go first. He smacks him, sees the guy didn't even budge, and be like, okay, I quit.
I retire.
He'll be like, okay,
match is over.
I quit. I quit. I'm
concede.
done.
I
We're-
concede. No, don't take this
Hey,
back, buddy.
and they're gonna be and it's gonna be one of them where they just like, no, buddy, you're not going nowhere. Pulls a gun. I'm like, no, you gonna take the slap.
You're going.
We gonna be.
Take.
So wrestling and power slap are the only sports I was ever able to get into.
Why does power slapping count? You know good well that is actually a new concept, so it doesn't count.
Here's what's great about power slap. It's like if NASCAR was just car crashes.
Yep, that's about right. And now I love me some NASCAR, right? I love some NASCAR. Do I know all the names? Obviously not. I only know the ones that were on cereal boxes. But when I watch NASCAR, I'm just waiting for that. I'm just waiting for that one guy who needs to be different. That one guy who's just like, I'm gonna fuck this all up.
I'm gonna turn right.
So
I'm gonna turn right instead of
I'll be honest,
left.
about 2 years ago, I actually went to my first NASCAR thing. It was at the Sonoma Speedway.
Yeah.
I did a video for one of the NASCAR drivers, and so he got me comp tickets, and so me and my wife and kids went. I'd never been to NASCAR before. I never watched. I didn't know they do 99 laps.
Yeah, they do a lot of
Holy shit!
they do a lot of laps, and then on
It
top
was exciting for the first, 30 minutes or so, and then we're like, Jesus
30
Christ, they're
minutes?
still making left turns.
the 30 minutes, that's about 25 laps. So you were excited for the first quarter of it. For the first quarter.
You got to the point the kids are like, how much longer? And I'm like, I don't know.
So funny thing is, right? I'm actually more in the horse races than I am in the NASCAR. And the reason I am is because they run 4 times longer, 4 times faster. So, they're getting around. So while, as y'all know, I ran track and field, while I get around a quarter mile in about 52 seconds, they're getting around 1 mile in 52 seconds. And so it's always that last stretch for me. Because you see these damn horses is going all in, and you're like, you just want your guy to just come out of nowhere and just be like, come on, pass him up. I like racing, right?
Yeah.
I love racing, and so racing is just exciting for me. So I love horse races more than I love NASCAR. But I love NASCAR because, again, like you said, it does last a little bit too long, But I do enjoy NASCAR for the chaos.
Okay.
The chaos because of the car crashes.
That's the best part.
That's the best part. Yeah.
How many people would you say die in these crashes?
I think almost none of them.
Oh, okay.
I don't think any of them because those cars are well.
There's roll cages in there.
Yeah, they have all that protective gear and stuff in there. Because I'm sure early on people were getting off, but then at the same time, you got to think about it. There have been no recent reports of death in football, right? The closest thing we had was DeMar Hamlin 2 years ago, and that was because he went to cardiac arrest on the field.
Yeah,
at random.
Well, everybody knows in football you die when you retire because of the CTE.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
die on
but
the field.
but early on, because you got to remember, American football was invented in the late 1800s.
True.
So
No pads.
no pads,
It was
no.
more like, well, there was some.
There was
leather
there was
back then.
there was only
It was
a
more
few
like rugby
reported.
back in the day.
They didn't even have helmets when they first started. So back then, there were very few reported deaths because at the end of the day, for the most part, it was a bunch of idiots bashing their heads into each other like rams to run the ball. The passing game wasn't even a thing until the first pass was thrown in late 1910s. Okay, and I think that comes into the style of innovation when it comes to wrestling, right? So we talk about how things have progressed to make protections in football, the progressions that are made to protect in NASCAR. Now, there's a protection that has developed in WWE in recent years, one particularly that I do not like at all. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Those cameras can't even see me. I hate it. And that is the chair shots.
Yeah, they don't do the chair shots to the head no more.
They don't do the chair shots to the head. Now, granted, it is good because, again, safety is paramount, right? There was nothing more that I enjoyed than somebody taking a smack to the face from a hard chair. Just take one of these and bam, they fall flat and it's like it's over. I used to enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
What protections that have you noticed that have made a change in pro wrestling and sports entertainment?
I mean, definitely there's the whole chair shot thing. Back in the day you could get your hand up, but I guess CTE is a thing now. So
Yeah.
they had to give it the thing
Well,
that
it's not that it was never a thing. They just brought it to light.
Yeah.
Somebody
Yeah.
did the research and was like, "Wait, there's a correlation."
the thing that bothers me now is the ref stoppages. Like when someone gets busted open hard way,
Yeah.
and then the ref will stop the match so they can try and stop the bleeding. Like that just kills all the momentum in a match, takes all the drama out.
Yeah, I also noticed they will actually be putting on the gloves mid-match as well.
Yeah, I remember it was an NXT. It was Samoa Joe and Finn Balor for the NXT title, and I think it was one of them. I think it was Joe got busted open on his eyebrow, and they couldn't get it closed. And so, like every 2 minutes, the refs are like stopping the match and toweling him off and trying to get his stop bleeding, and it killed the whole match.
For me, it was sorry.
Boxing, when they have their rounds, it kind of reminds me of like how when you go to your corner, you're bleeding, they're doing the touch-ups, they're giving you they're trying to get the, and there has to be a clean way of doing it to where it doesn't interrupt the flow so much. Because if they can do, and I get that there's no rounds in wrestling, but now when a boxer starts bleeding, do they don't pause the match, right? They just wait till the round.
They go to the round
is over, and then they tend to.
Well, also in wrestling, blood is a storytelling device.
Yeah,
true.
Getting color. Steve Austin and Bret Hart. WrestleMania 13. That shot of Austin in the sharpshooter with blood running down his face. That made him a star. You take the blood away, that spot is nowhere near as iconic as it ended up being.
Yeah, the other stoppage that you mentioned, you mentioned the stoppage. I want to mention one of my own, and it was Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. Now granted, John Cena really did get opened up during that match because he hit him with that elbow for real. It was still it was like that stoppage. It kind of it killed everything that was going.
Yeah.
So it was like
Well, there was one match where it was Undertaker and Brock Lesnar, and this was after he ended the streak.
Okay.
But I think Brock got busted open, and the refs were trying to stop the match to patch him up, and Brock shoved the referee so hard the dude his feet got off the ground, he flew across the ring, and after that the EMTs were like, we're not getting in there.
No, I'm not getting in there. Yeah.
Yeah, you crazy?
Yeah. So
that was a nice moment.
So did you notice that were there any safety precautions that came about that you weren't a big fan of?
You know what? I missed the chair shot, but I understand why it's no longer there. And honestly, you don't really need a chair shot to have a good wrestling show. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of guys out there whose whole thing during the ECW era. Now, ECW was also about good wrestling, but it also had its tangent, thanks to Paul Heyman seeing strengths, where you have some guys that are only good at hitting people with stuff, or taking crazy pumps, and like ultimately, like I'm you know, I agree with Phil. Like, stopping the match every few minutes to like make sure that the wrestler is patched up and what have you. To me, the policy should be, if you're worried about getting a wrestler getting an infection or something, that they should just go, all right, let's end the match a little quicker, instead of having to stop what they're doing and then go back in. That's corny to me. Like make it work within the story. Fucking Sid Vicious broke his leg jumping off the top rope.
And no one gave a shit. They kept the match.
They kept that match
People
going.
kept stomping him on the ground.
I'm not gonna lie, that almost made me throw up.
They didn't keep it going forever, but like, I would imagine the run-in came a little bit faster than
but it's just,
you know.
No,
So
I totally get that. And it's like, I totally get the argument where it's like, you know, well, if you're really good at it, you can work around these limitations, you know. But it's almost like telling a painter, look, you can't use blue. It's like, yeah, if they're a good painter, they can still paint a masterpiece. But it'd be nice if you give them all the tools so they can tell their story the way they want to.
Okay, so we're all parents in some sort of capacity. I'm the only actual parent here, but we're all parents in a capacity. And I always say parents because, I mean, we're raising children here,
thank
right?
you for that.
We're all raising children here. How do you try to? Well, you already said you have, but have you tried to get your kids into watching wrestling or enjoying wrestling?
Yeah, I've taken my stepdaughter and my stepson to wrestling shows over the years. Mm-hmm. I took my stepdaughter Caitlin when she was really young. I used to take her to indie shows. You know, she'd get super into it. She'd get excited. I would do videos with Pro Wrestling Revolution. She'd tag along with me. She'd get in a ring and run the ropes and roll around and mess around with some of the wrestlers there. So she had a lot of fun doing that. We'd watch WrestleMania, and like, I wouldn't know who Logan Paul or all these other celebrities are, but she does. She's like, oh my God, it's so-and-so. So she's not like into it the way I'm into it, but she'll watch it if it's on. She'll go to a wrestling show. She has fun when we go.
Yeah.
My oldest, when she was smaller, she was a huge fan of Triple H. She used to always sing that theme song.
That's very telling.
Time to play the game. She loved that theme song. My second daughter, she will watch it if she sees me watching and she wants to hang out with me, you know, but she's not really into it. And my baby, she doesn't watch wrestling because, well, she's a baby. So, you know, I got a question for you, Phil.
Okay.
If your kids got into backyard wrestling, would you be open to support it, or would you just be like, hell no?
I mean, I'd be open to support it because I'd feel like a hypocrite if I didn't. You know? But I would also like pass on my words of wisdom and be like, don't be dropping people on their heads. You know, make sure, you know, safety is first and foremost. Make sure you guys are looking out for each other. You guys are supposed to work together to protect each other. You know, so I would definitely pass on all the things I had to learn the hard way,
right?
And give some words of wisdom. But yeah, I'd support it because I mean, all the cool things in my life have come from backyard wrestling. I wouldn't deprive anybody of that.
Right, naturally. What about you, Joaquin?
Honestly, it's the same. Whenever Amira wants to do something that I think is healthy and good for her within the parameters of reason, and you can have a safe backyard wrestling environment, as controversial as that may sound. She is a natural athlete. I think she'd be fine at it. She's, at least in that aspect, I'd be curious to see what she would be like on the mic, to be honest. But yeah, I would support her. I would also give her the same words of wisdom that I that from things I've observed and things I've learned coming up in it. And honestly, I would even suggest that having some mentorship and some guidance for the entire group that she assembles would be good. Like, so yeah, no, if anything, like, Absolutely. Go ahead and have fun, but like make sure that you're safe, and this is how we kept safe. So
Okay, so would you actually meet the group if they started doing backyard wrestling? Would you want to meet the group before
Yes.
before they got business started?
yes.
Why so?
I like when I wanted to join Phil's Backyard Federation. The first thing my mom said was, "Well, I got to meet his mother."
Okay.
you know, just to get to know like who is my kid going to be around, where get a feel for it, like. And she, off of her own judgment, decided that his mom was good people and Phil was good people, and I was going to be all right here. And then, after a couple of meetings, I think, my grandfather came around and talked to his mom once, and, and then that was that, what I mean? Then there was trust. And I would come home and I would tell my folks, like, this is who we have wrestling with us this week. This is what these people are like, and they would listen. And I think if they thought that there was some problematic stuff as far as personalities, and we don't think that person's very nice, you probably shouldn't spend time, they probably would have said something. And it's the same thing with that, where it's like, I wouldn't want to meet some people, at least in the initial start. But and trust that she's making good decisions about who she's around. Yeah, I definitely want to know. It's a safety issue.
Right,
know?
right.
So,
All right, so something that annoyed me when I first discovered this. So I guess at this point, Martin, you are, I guess, the only member of the Only Child Club. But I did not know that Phil had a brother.
I did have a brother.
I have known Phil for a quarter century. Everybody, I have known Phil for a quarter century. I did not know he had siblings.
Yeah, I got.
Right.
I had a younger brother.
I
still do.
You still do.
I did, and I do now.
The
still
rumors
too.
of your death have been unsubstantiated.
No, I got. My younger brother Jackson. He's like 4 years younger than me.
Yeah. So because you've met my younger brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Richard.
5 seconds.
No, not my twin brother. My other younger brother. We went to school.
Oh yeah.
Michael.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So now he has
and your sister Victoria.
and my sister.
Victoria.
Yeah, the only one, and you've actually met my youngest sister, but you didn't meet my youngest brother. So, well, he met her inadvertently because at the time she was a baby.
Oh,
Yeah,
that makes
that was at our high school graduation. So you probably wouldn't remember, but that's when you seen her. That was the baby my mom had. So it wasn't my baby. I wasn't just knocking chicks up at 17. That wasn't my style. But so you have a younger brother, and you actually brought him in to do backyard wrestling. And on tape, on what you have shown us, the guy is huge.
Yep.
Right?
He wasn't always so huge.
So he started wrestling with us when he was like 8 or 9.
Really?
Yeah,
9. He was
because
9.
we were wrestling in the backyard, and he wanted to wrestle too. And so him and his friends would come and they'd wrestle too.
They were our cruiserweight division.
Cruiserweight.
Eventually he kind of like grew out of it and started doing his own thing. But then when we got older, he was interested in coming back and trying it again. But he is a giant human being.
Okay, so outside of the one match that we've seen on BYW
Backyard wrestling history.
Backyard Wrestling History, I'm trying to find the right initials for it, but I am terrible at just doing that. Right.
All good.
So yeah, so you had him. So you've shown him in at least 2 videos at BYW.
Yeah, he wrestled with us for that second run he had. He was with us for about a year.
Right.
And it took a while for him to like find his groove and find where he fit in. So he kind of just drifted his first couple months, and then he really like hit his stride towards the second half of his run. That's what my video was all about.
Yeah. So yeah, and I saw that. So did you ever think about like giving him like a Big Show type creative, or did you just want him to do his own thing?
I really wanted everyone to kind of do their own thing. Like toward the end there, when we were doing CCW, a lot of times I would let Nappy and Evan put their own storylines together.
Yeah.
Right.
And they'd be coming up to me telling me what I'm going to do. Like I would really only like step in if I felt I need to. There was a couple times I made executive decisions, but for the most part, I really like let people do their own thing. But I was there to help, my brother every step of the way.
Right.
There was a time we were doing a promo. Like he used to have an interview show, like Piper's Pit,
Right.
On the spot with Xavier Lascano.
and he was interviewing me and my brother and I think Nappy because we were all in a match that day. And my brother was super nervous, but he's trying to like put the poker face on and be cool. But you can tell he doesn't really know what to say because he's super camera shy. So the whole time I just got like my head down. I'm just like whispering stuff to him that he can say. I'm like feeding him lines to help him out through his promo. I remember the last match me and him had where I let him beat me and get the win over me. Like afterwards, he's just like, "What do you call it? Devastating new finisher, Methodox?" And he clearly hadn't thought of a name yet. So while I'm laying on the ground selling, I like whisper a name to him, so that way he can have a name for his finisher. So I would help people if they needed help. I would definitely help him if he needed help, but also wanted people to find their own way and figure out what they want to do and works best for them.
It's amazing what age does, because when he was younger, he was not mic shy. When he was 1 ton as opposed to Methodox, oh my gosh. Like, and it's like you go through puberty and then things happen.
Yeah, that happens when you grow up,
Yeah, it happens. So when it comes to wrestling as a whole, which do you prefer to do more? Did you prefer doing production? Did you prefer doing promos? Did you prefer doing the what is it called?
I get what you're saying. You ain't got
do you prefer the journalism aspect? Do you prefer the manager role?
So and I'll let you go after this. I always preferred to be behind the camera than in front of the camera.
Right.
But I had to be in front of the camera because we only got so many people.
Right.
Yeah.
And also if I have this creative vision, I need to be able to act out that creative vision to bring this story to life, bring this character to life, bring this, whatever we're doing to life. But I definitely felt more comfortable behind the camera.
Right.
That was because also in my head, I was a much better wrestler than I actually was. So in my head, I'm goddamn Dean Malenko. But then I'd be watching the footage back and I'm like, oh, why am I so terrible? Jesus, why am I gassed out so early? So I never was able to live up to my own expectations. But, doing the backyard wrestling thing, and I was the guy who shot all of our shows, who edited all of our videos, would make all of our music video hype packages. I learned how to make websites because we needed a website, so I made us our website. Like, I learned all about production and media and graphic design and content creation from doing backyard wrestling. And now that's what I do for a living. And I've had all these amazing opportunities in life. I've made a film. I got to work with Netflix. I've been all over the country. Like, I've done all this amazing stuff. And it wouldn't have happened without backyard wrestling.
So before we switch over to Joaquin, I have to ask, does those websites still exist?
I think the PWL one is still up. That one won't die. But all the other websites have long since come down because just like the places they're hosted have gone under. But I think the PWL one is still up. I think it's the site that refuses to die.
Okay. So Joaquin, I'll ask him the same question. Which phase of wrestling did you prefer doing most?
Honestly, I liked it all equally. Like being a performer, being a writer, like coming up with angles and concepts, being the promoter and going out and like telling people, like recruiting, like all aspects of the activity, something that I really enjoyed.
Okay. So I want to wait for Phil to sit down back this.
No, I was just checking. We got about like 20 minutes left.
Okay. So if the opportunity presented itself, would you guys had gone mainstream? Like, would you guys had gone to one of the bigger promotions?
Well, I did go to wrestling school, actually.
Well, yeah, I do know that. You mentioned going to wrestling school. A few other guys you went to wrestling school.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I was that age, I thought, oh, this is what I want to do. I love wrestling. I'll go to wrestling school. I'll be great, and then I'll that's what I'll do. And I went to college so I would have something to fall back on.
Right.
Because I was like, okay, well, I have a degree in graphic design and visualization. So I was like, cool, I can bring a laptop with me and I can freelance on the road while I'm going from town to town,
Right.
doing the loop. And it didn't work out that way. I got a video coming out, I want to say in April, about my experience with wrestling school and why it didn't work out for me. But I thought I would. I thought I had what it takes. Turns out I didn't.
Why do you think that is?
So there was a couple things. One, like I said, I'm not really an athlete. Okay. And I remember I dieted and I exercised for like 2 months before I went to wrestling school. I got like in the best shape of my life. And then I got to wrestling school and found out the best shape of my life is still nowhere near the shape I need to be in to be a wrestler.
Right.
The other thing was with backyard wrestling, I had like my little clique of people I would ride with. I had Poe and Kid Crush with me. And the three of us, we were the three amigos. We were doing everything together. And when I went to wrestling school, they didn't come with me. They both had excuses why they couldn't come, And so it was just me. And that makes a huge difference when, I'm driving home and my back is killing me, my neck is killing me, I got bruises under my arm from hitting the ropes, my radio's broken, so all I got is the sound of wind driving by. And there's nobody in the car hyping me up. There's nobody going, oh, they ain't ready for us. Did you see that shit? So not having that support circle to keep me motivated, it was really hard to keep the passion going at that point. Right. Other problem is the school I picked fucking sucked. Oh. I was looking at... our top pick was Pro Wrestling Iron, which was run by Donovan Morgan and Michael Modest, but they went under. They went out of business before we went. I looked at APW, which was featured in Beyond the Mat. That's the school from Beyond the Mat that Roland Alexander ran. We looked at that. I looked at BTW, which is where Bailey came from. Yeah.
It's because she was in South Bay with
we worked ring crew for a BTW show. So we talked with Jason Stiles, who was the lead trainer, the head trainer at the time. And then we found out about this promotion called Devil Mountain Wrestling.
Right.
And they were like a startup. They had just started up like within the past year or two at that point. But their prices were like a fraction of what everybody else was charging. And I never had a lot of money growing up. So I was just like, you mean I can afford training and groceries? Hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And it was just, the training sucked. Like the ring, they didn't have a gym. So the ring was like in the guy's backyard.
Oh, so backyard training.
Which I mean, I felt at home. But the problem is when it rained, they wouldn't train. And so in my first month there, I only was able to get in the ring like 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
And then I was also the only student. That's kind of a red flag. Yeah. They said, no, we have a whole class of more advanced students. You're our only beginner. But then I worked a bunch of Devil Mountain shows on ring crew. Never saw any of these other students they supposedly had. And it felt like they didn't really have a curriculum. They were just kind of making stuff up on the fly. I'd be training and it would just be like 3 or 4 guys in the ring going, why don't we try this? Try this. Let's see what happens. Try this. And so the training sucked. And so the fact that like I couldn't get in the ring as often as I needed to, because you need to build up that muscle memory. Your body needs to callus and get conditioned to what's happening.
How often did they have trainings?
It was supposed to be like 3 times a week, but they wouldn't train when it was raining because the ring was outside. So I wasn't able to get in the ring as often as I wanted. The training sucked. I didn't have a support circle. Like I set myself up for failure, basically.
Yeah, that'll do it. So back to the original question, which Phil answered completely, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you.
If you had the opportunity, would you have taken it to the next level, to the pro level, like trying to get to one of the bigger platforms?
I had this crazy notion when we were doing AWF, which is the last Fed we ever did. There was another Fed out in the East Coast called 2KW.
Okay.
And at some point, they started off backyard wrestling, but they were wrestling like on the New York, like playgrounds and stuff, like not even in the backyard, because what backyard are you gonna have in New York City? I think they're from New York City.
I think they were from Brooklyn.
Oh, from Brooklyn specifically.
Maybe.
Yeah, but so. NYC, and like they eventually did their own thing in a I don't know the details. I don't know if they went to wrestling school. I just know that they took the 2KW brand and they made it into a Fed with a ring and they're charging people. I said, well, shoot, we have a cadre of regulars. We have the RCW guys. Fuck playing wrestling school. Why don't we just like invest in like, renting a spot, renting or buying a ring, and put our own shows. People were already coming out for the shows that you guys are doing over at Cheese Park. Why not like get some chairs in here and charge people for admission as the next step? And Phil wisely said, well, the thing is, we should go to wrestling school because, that it's one thing for us to invent even though we're sort of fine with what we're already doing. Right. If we want to expand beyond that or wrestle anywhere else, I felt like we could have done it for the time being until we got to wrestling school or whatever. But you know me, I'm always like Mr. Independent. Let's just do it. Let's kick down the doors. Who says we have to join the establishment? There's a way we can just do our own little independent thing. Okay. I've always had that like streak in me where I'm like, I'm not gonna let them tell me I can't when there's ways to get around it. Right. But but looking back as an older adult, because we were in college having this discussion, he's right. I mean, you want to know, we didn't really know what we were doing. We figured out stuff that worked for us as far as like, well, this is how we take bumps safely and nothing happens. But even then with all that, there were still mistakes. Yeah. And I'm not saying that, and even the pros made mistakes. So having a universalized training would have been better. So I had thoughts of like, let's just do it ourselves. And then when like I couldn't get the rest of the group to band with me, I was like, all right, well, I guess we're not doing it then. Because I couldn't afford to go to wrestling. There was no, like, fast food wasn't going to pay for wrestling school. Right. And I couldn't afford it. The only money I was getting at the time when we were in college was that federal aid. Yeah. But I will say that a couple of months back, I believe it was November 18th, was that the date of the show? I made my professional debut as a ringside announcer. That's for Pro City Wrestling. This is my friend... got trained. Our friend Evan, who comes from the same backyard, got officially trained, and then he hooked me up with a position there to be a commentator. I had a ball.
Would you actually be open to trying to grow in the in a journalism space for wrestling?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I look at like what I'm doing now with the sicko mode. Yeah. As like a form of wrestling journalism. Yeah. And I wouldn't mind writing columns, and I wouldn't mind being a professional commentator on the regular. Right now, I'm just waiting for them to do another show where they need a commentator. Yeah. They're going to call me. But, the guy that I worked with, his name was also Phil, oddly enough. He was like, man, I could get you in touch with like APW and all these other feds. Like you have a lot of potential, put you on. Because, all this experience podcasting, and then even before that, in the backyard arena has kind of prepared me because I know the moves. I know the idea of how you would call the story, how you build the tension. So yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I had like a million questions. I could go on all day about this, but we got to get one last question in before we get out of here because, we only had so much time to work with here. But biggest question of them all. Would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely.
In a heartbeat.
I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm not proud of a lot of some of the things I did, but I would absolutely do it again. Like, that was so much fun. And those were like our formative years. And I'm still friends with so many people I met through backyard wrestling. And my life wouldn't be what it is now if it's not for backyard wrestling. And it's like, it brought all these people from all these different backgrounds together. And I think it's just kind of, none of us would have been friends outside of backyard wrestling, but there's one thing united us all, and it's fucking wonderful. I remember like when YouTube first became a thing and I started posting backyard wrestling videos on there. I remember one of the earliest comments I got was somebody going, boy, that's an awful lot of black people. And I remember going, is it? I mean, I guess I didn't really count before. All right, cool. I never noticed.
I think there's this perception too that black people just weren't. There's a certain time where people thought African Americans weren't into wrestling. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? Like that was like a stigma there, especially backyard wrestling. I think, when you look at those old backyard wrestling VHS tapes they used to have back in the day, or even when you go through YouTube and you look at like, feds that weren't on that tape but just putting their own stuff out, like around the time when we were doing our thing. There were no black people. The only other fed that rivaled us with people of color beyond just black, but Asian, Latino,
Yeah.
would be 2KW, and they're from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
And see, I think that's one thing I do appreciate about this whole thing, because Phil, being who he is and where he grew up, being in Richmond, California, there's a lot of us, and so there was no room for seeing color. It was okay, if you're interested, bring your ass.
And honestly, I would even argue that even without backyard wrestling, Phil and I still would have been friends. We had a lot in common.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely things I would do differently if I could do them over, but the whole the experience as a whole, I mean, it was life changing.
Yeah, and I definitely would still be friends with the both of you without backyard wrestling, because
You weren't
I was
even
never in it because I was never even in it.
So-
We met under better circumstances, under much safer circumstances, should I say? Because I would not like to be 37 years old and looking at old videos of Phil giving my big ass a leg drop.
There's an alternate universe out there where
Phil's an athlete.
You were a former. There's several there's a whole multiverse, but there's a multiverse out there where you were like our longest running VCR champion ever, and like that's in world number 236.
Right.
It's crazy because at the time when you're 16, 17, you feel invincible,
Right.
but then that stuff comes back to get you when you get to be our age, because there are times now, like I still have problems with my neck, I still have problems with my back, I have problems with my ankles are all jacked up. Like there are times I'll just be walking and then all of a sudden it's like, when you have like a rock in your shoe, it feels like that, but inside my ankle, because it's like bone on bone in there.
Look, I got a screw in mine, so I get it. I got to. I know in the future we're gonna have to do more collaborations. We're gonna definitely have to talk about this championship belt here. We're definitely gonna have to talk more about wrestling. We're gonna talk about more of our friendship and history, because I love this. I enjoyed this, and trust me, guys, it was a treat doing this with you guys today.
Yeah, thank you for coming out to our spot.
Yeah, nothing made me more happier. I went to bed at 4:00 this morning because I worked until about 2, and all I thought about was I better not miss this alarm because I gotta be here. It meant so much to me, guys, and I appreciate you guys for having me out here and doing this this platform mix up. He let me walk out of here with a backyard wrestling history button.
Make sure you grab a keychain on the way out.
Oh, I already did.
Oh, perfect.
I already did. Yep.
Grab your swag.
Yeah, we grabbing swag, and trust me when I tell you, I'm definitely going to be getting. I'm definitely going to be walking away with a hoodie when I get my taxes done, because y'all know I'm broke. Everybody, all my audience knows I'm broke. I live like that on purpose. So, just remember one thing, everybody. Kindness is free, and I'm cheap as fuck. So, again, appreciate you guys again. Go check out Diary of the Mad Hatter, Backyard Wrestling History, and what was yours again?
Oh, currently, you're going to check out Sicko Mode on YouTube.
And we're going to make sure all these are in the links in every description of every video, because I'm going to break them down before I post them. Well, Phil's going to break them down before we post them, and then we'll have a whole video. So appreciate that. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day, and as always, stay mad, my hatters.